Let's go.
Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, Soul Fam co-founder, co-creator Lexi Strummer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the Soul Fam podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the Soul Fam podcast.
Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast. We are so excited to have Fola Veritas of Deep Mind Squared back again as a guest. Fola, thank you so much for agreeing to come back and chat with us.
Thank you. Yeah, this is lovely to be here yet again and just seeing what you're all creating and the growth. Like I've been watching the different podcast episodes come out and it's like, ooh, so many neat people. Like what was the last one? Like a rainbow forest lady. I was like, ooh. So anyways, I look forward to hearing that one. I just saw it this morning.
Yeah. That one was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. She was super interesting. She's also from Canada, by the way. And she's so soft-spoken, yet her message is so powerful. And that interest in connecting with the trees, and one as an ancient sort of guide, but two, also just the miracle of the trees and how they interact and interconnect with one another and how they're really a part of us and we're a part of them. And it's just interesting. She gave some really cool insights. Do you incorporate anything like that in your practice?
Yeah, I would say like in my personal life practice, for sure, like nature as being part of the kind of like shamanic earth-based modalities or ways of being. That's a huge, huge part. And so, even as we're about to start here, I could just see also all these birds came and they're landing, kind of nesting in this tree right outside. And I find a lot of magic in like nature and the trees and what that kind of is a representation of our internal world, like those cycles. So yeah, it's neat to hear. I think that to me is kind of like a future part of the healing of humanity, is that reconnecting to nature.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're working these days? Things have probably shifted.
Yeah, going for a walk. Even yesterday, I saw an eagle flying over the river, like things like these medicine signs, as we call it. And I think the main way to kind of answer that question then is like the reminder for folks of, hey, like, well, how does the universe or God communicate with your soul? And nature being kind of like the direct creation of God, if we want to call her creator, the universe, spirit, that is like a huge part. I think that we often forget in like the busyness of life. I know that I do. It's just easy to go, with technology. We're really, and in the walls of our homes even, we're just shut out from the natural way of being. And so when I hear from folks, whether, they're just in simple conversation or they're in a situation that they're like really hoping to kind of create some transformative power within, it's like that reminder of what is nature providing, what messages are coming through that maybe the plants want to share or the birds or the animals, just by simply being still. And then also that kind of ties into the psychedelic world, the plant medicine world, where, we're kind of tapping into the spirits of the plants. What are those deeper messages that like the plants themselves hold for our consciousness that can really promote like healing and wellness? So,
Well, I see the tree of life behind you there on the wall. the Kabbalistic tree of life, maybe post the BOTA poster, maybe. I still need to get one of those. But I know that's only one part of your practice, only one part of, the areas that you're interested in and what you practice and what you study. But I saw on your social that you had a post about path working. And I thought that was super interesting. And I wondered if you could just share just a little bit about what that is for people who may not know, and maybe how that relates to the rest of the services that maybe you're offering.
For sure, Lexi. And I like that because, like, we're talking about trees. It's like, okay, right there, that's the tree, like the tree of life from the Kabbalistic or Kabbalah path or tradition. And so kind of, yeah, I find it kind of a funny segue that that's sort of where my life has taken more of a turn, from the inner healing that happened with the shamanic earth-based practice to now, okay, where are things really opening up around like expanded consciousness. And so the way I've kind of come to terms with that is seeing this tree of life as a map of our consciousness as a humanity, a map or outline of like the story of creation from the top where everything kind of was sourced and life has been created, all the way down to the bottom sphere of like the earth. And for me, coming from a very Christian background, in not the most positive way, if any of you have grown up in a maybe hyper-religious household, you can kind of get like a sour taste in your mouth for the Bible or different stories and things that you've been told, the dogma. I feel like working with this tree of life has really led me to a more heart-opened experience around what I learned as a kid, what those stories had, like what deeper meanings they maybe held. And so the path working is kind of just really moving along this tree and learning, and it's all tied to astrology and tarot and all sorts of different aspects of spirit, these correspondences that we can call them, that can help align us more with our own divinity, which we all have as humans. So yeah, I think there's a lot of power with studying, meditating on, learning more about what that tree has to offer.
What would you say to people who are maybe nervous about path working? Because I remember right before I've only done it once, and I feel like it was a friggin' marathon, but I remember being scared. Like, what if in a meditation I don't come back or I fall asleep? There's always a little warning or a disclaimer: remain alert at all times, try not to fall asleep, try not to steer from the path. What would you say to people who are interested, but maybe a little bit apprehensive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Lexi, because when I first kind of came into the Kabbalah and like that path, I was actually reading Dion Fortune's book, That Mystical Kabbalah. And that was prior to like even like meeting now I have 22 teachings, like really getting into anything like magical practice wise. And I remember for like a good week or two, just from reading the book, I was having bizarre things at night. Like I would wake up with the words and thoughts in my head and like Hebrew. I like had no idea what was going on, and it was really uncomfortable. And so what I learned from kind of leaving that, being like, okay, I'm going to put this down. This isn't really for me right now. That's okay. There needs to be a bit more of a foundation that's built, and then trusting that foundation came exactly when it needed to. I want to say it would have been within a year or so that I was able to then go back into it. So it wasn't that long of a period of time. It's just, I think a huge part, is recognizing that there are sort of practices and ways to like clear energy and balance our own energy systems and that of the space around us, and to enter into learning this stuff in a particular way. I think I just released a video about this on YouTube, actually. It's about a book called Simplified Kabbalah Magic by Ted Andrews. And I would say that's a really great book because I feel like he does a great job of explaining how to kind of navigate some of the energies that can come through, and to clarify, because yeah, you're right, Lexi, there's so much kind of, there's different views about like, you got to do it right. And these are the certain ways you do it. And if not, like, you're effed, and what I'm learning, it's like, well, I don't think it's that bad, but perhaps that fear is placed there because, as with anything that can really shift us, I see this in the medicine work with people with plants and so forth. It's like when we're about to create a shift or a change in consciousness or step outside that comfort zone, the fear comes up because it's the unknown. And many times even spiritual teachers, I think, are often put into the role of kind of being like, you better be careful, so that only those who are really ready and have that dedication inside, like when and I think we all do, it's just a matter of when that comes up, then it's going to be the time and we're going to push through it, but yeah, it's not like it's always easy. That's for sure.
That's for sure. And never ending.
Well, that was another one of our questions, was about cleansing your space and energetic hygiene, and sort of, how often do you do it? I guess I found myself in a situation where, still every day, just remembering to cleanse my space, remembering to do my basic rituals. It's sort of a thing where I get out of a habit of doing it, and then I fall into that icky energy. And it's like, well, you're kind of just, if you learn about taking showers and you take a few, that doesn't mean you never have to take a shower ever again in your life because you learned about it and you learned how to take a really good shower. I just kind of wonder if energetic hygiene becomes a necessity at some point, and maybe if you wanted to share any views on that.
Yeah, and please come tell my kid to have a shower more than just.
It's such a miracle.
It's like,
when you can get them.
Am I the only mother that deals with that?
No, you're not, because my daughter just had an overnight, and she spent 2 hours convincing her friend to take a shower. And you're not the only mother. It's brutal. If they take a bath or shower, it's a win. Proceed.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I definitely believe that hygiene, I like that, the concept of hygiene, both physically and spiritually or emotionally, mentally, how important that is on our paths as humans. And whatever that looks like for people, it can be as simple as like having a more intentional shower. And, in the prayer, like in the shower, just having prayer as it washes over to cleanse, because, like, let's be honest, life can be so busy, not every morning. When the days I have to take my kid to school, it's like, I don't really want to have to think necessarily about doing all the rituals that I might take part in. It'll be a very blessed day if I can do that before we actually get out the house. And so one thing that I've really, I guess, kind of learned over the past 6 months, especially, is this like compassion for myself, that we, especially as women, are such like cyclical beings. And, like that whole concept, like the principle of rhythm and this sort of ebbing and flowing, that we're going to step into those practices more easily some days or weeks, and other times we're not. And that's okay, because I think the beautiful part of it is that we start to realize, oh, I have a negative thought, and these negative thoughts or feelings have been maybe a day or two, like, okay, I haven't done like the lesser banishing ritual. Maybe I should do that, and then step back into the habit again. So that's kind of been the part for me that's been really helpful. To be okay with practicing the things I practice.
That's super helpful. The intentional shower is really helpful. Because I fully intended to do a full lesser banishing ritual. And instead I sat in my chair and did a kind of partial one. And then I did a little analysis of the keyword in my head. I'm like, well, it's better than nothing, but like an intentional shower that would have been 4 minutes of really being here, being in the now, really focusing on that. I wonder if that would have been more effective. I mean, my question is, if you're sitting in your car, Fola, and you have 5 minutes before pickup, and you're feeling kind of a weird energy, what is it can you do while you're sitting in your car?
Yeah, in car time, I definitely will vibrate. I will vibrate divine names or call on angels. There's times I've driven doing the LBRP, I'm not going to lie, which is probably not like the safest thing, but just imagining the four corners or calling in the energies of the four corners, I would say is helpful. Or even like toning, vibrating of your vocal cords, or kind of like a humming to a certain pitch that I think intuitively feels right. And then just holding that intention of this is helping to clear through my energy field. Because I think, yeah. Oh, Diana, I think it looks like you want to say something.
No, I was thinking about just recently. There's music that's out that has tones in it, solfeggio tones in it, and I was listening to someone talk about just saying "Om" and how that vibrates, that connects you to sort of the higher dimensions and the earthly dimensions as well. So it seems silly sometimes, but it's such a worthwhile thing to do personally.
Yeah. Especially in your car, if it's just you by yourself, like people aren't going to know. They can't tell you're like, are you singing to the radio? Or are you, chanting to God? I don't know, or with God? Like, yeah, like that.
That's super helpful.
That's helpful. I was going to say, what's the lesser banishing thing, you guys? I don't know what that is.
Oh, Lexi, go ahead.
The lesser, well,
is it a kind of ritual?
Yeah, and it's present in Wicca to some extent. It's present in the Western mystery tradition. I think that's who maybe, where did it start? Was it the Golden Dawn maybe? I'm not sure, but they took ideas from ancient cultures and maybe created a ritual for themselves that basically you're cleansing your space beforehand. You're banishing out negative things. You're cleansing your space. That's my really non-articulate description. I think Fola should weigh in on what is the LBRP.
Yeah, I think that's my understanding as well. Is had its beginning, at least in the form that we know, through like the Order of the Golden Dawn. And it's a practice that can be used, like they say, really it should be used morning and night as like a form of using the energy of the pentagram and its kind of representation of the 5 elements and everything else it represents, this power to cleanse a space, to align with the divine names of God and the archangels that kind of guard each of the 4 directions. So the way I liken it is it's really like us aligning with the 4 corners of our world, east, west, south, north, and then tapping into also the kind of alignment of the energies within our body that can just help us be more balanced. And I think Israel Regardie said it, like it helps to like brighten the auric field. But what I'm learning too now is that with that brightening can sometimes mean, like a moth to a flame, more things can come. So then it's almost like that's why it needs to happen as often as possible as a way to cleanse and intentionally banish things that maybe don't serve us. But yeah, it's got a lot of ties to, like Lexi was saying, Egyptian stuff and the Hebrew and like other aspects that I think have just been compiled over time.
And you can
Super
find some
helpful.
of that stuff online, but
I can use that on a daily basis.
You should. I find when I'm in a bad mood, I do it. I'm like, ooh, I don't really like the way I'm coming off to people right now. Like maybe the bad vibe is me. So I'll do a lesser banishing ritual. And I know that there's other rituals within the same tradition that are sort of like shrouding in a way. It's not the same as cloaking or fully concealing, but it's sort of shrouding the aura in sort of a protective energy. And those are available too. They have a billion steps for somebody who's like directionally challenged, which is my right, which is my left. It's pretty, I'm going to have to put Post-its all over my house to be able to figure it out. But it's, you'll use a piece of incense and with the the names of God and the, going in the specific directions, you'll create sort of a shield type of energy for yourself once you've brightened your auric field. So, I wish I've seen people do both really, really beautifully. And it just encourages me to learn more. But I mean, Fola, what do you think? Is somebody going to cause any harm by trying to do an LBRP if they've maybe read a little bit of Israel Regardie or Dion Fortune, at least familiarize themselves, and they sort of look up how to do it on YouTube or Google? Are they going to really harm anything if they just try it with the right intentions? I don't think so.
Yeah, I'd like to think not. I think it also, though, anything that comes from an experience, even if it ends up being something that we could like call quote unquote bad, is really meant to be a teachable moment. Like I could say back to my kind of initial exploration on the tree of life, reading Dion Fortune's book, that could have been really reckless, stupid of me because, I didn't have the proper foundation in my eyes. Didn't really know what I was doing. I was going into it kind of blind and by myself. And so it was in a way like not my ideal situation. And yet I learned so much that I feel like has now allowed me to, remain informed in certain ways, to be a bit more conscious and cautious entering into spaces, and also to share that with people when I teach or, because I think, like you said, a lot of people do kind of get turned off or they're uncertain about it and the fear is there. And knowing, like with anything, when we can be a bit proactive, whether it's with a ritual practice or some other form, just knowledge in general, I think that can be really, really beneficial for somebody. So I think it's up to the person, their past experiences too, because some folks would be like, don't ever try these things or, explore this modality because it could unlock something. And there's folks within those modalities who use them often and would say, oh no, it's great. Like it adds this value to your life. Same thing with the psychedelics. Like, all these different, we say the same with like even prescription medications. There's like a lot of negative side effects oftentimes. And yet what's the benefit and the not so great benefits? How can we outweigh each other here? Mm-hmm.
I think Diana had a question about sort of Diana. Nope, the psychedelics.
Well, I think we were curious about your use of the psychedelics in your practice, and really in general, there's been a lot of focus on psychedelics, both as an emerging pharmaceutical, so to speak, and then people sort of using it, in expeditions and adventures, in travel. And I'm super curious what your opinion about all of that is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question because, like, I guess say if I think of people I know that went to Peru and they had no intention of going on a plant journey with like ayahuasca, and somehow it came to them, and they went through whatever the steps were required of them to do that, even though there was no real prep from, flying there and having the intention initially. I would say for the most part would add that it had a lot of benefit to their life. It created a lot of shifts that these plants can offer. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to be like, well, that's right or wrong. But at the same time, I recognize a bit of the witnessing the psychedelic world just really blowing up with this kind of new revolution. I mean, it happened before. Prior to that, now it's happening again. And for me, it's a bit of the difficulties balancing my own relationship with like the commercialization of it, and really I think we put a lot of weight into it, and that I think can, as with anything, is going to eventually have its sort of negative side, like its shadow side, show up, which we have seen. There's incidences where people go anywhere, work with anyone who even is like a trained practitioner, and it turns out to be not the most positive experience, due to whatever, lots of unethical behaviors and things like that taking place. And so I guess it has both sides of the coin that people just need to be aware of it. Personally, for me, that's kind of where I've like, I was a registered nurse, very curious about the plant medicine world and working with people with integration and microdosing and things like that. And I had many friends be like, well, why don't you go on and do like a training program? And I did some training, but nothing formal, because I just was like, I don't want to work within the healthcare system that's already kind of messed up doing this work. Like, I don't really feel that those things align in a moral value perspective for myself. And so that's why I finally was just like, I'm stepping away from that. I don't see the clinical lens as like the only right lens. I think there's other ways we can go about doing it ethically, morally, and intentionally, that can be of support for some, not all. Because again, the other method might be more ideal for some folks. So those are just my 2 cents.
Do you feel like it's super effective in general?
Like the psychedelic work or plant, yeah. I think for those people that I've witnessed using it for a variety of reasons, I would say yes. And in my own life, like what it can bring up to show us what wants to be healed, a lot of what I think it can do, and this is my theory, is that like I feel like it can help waken people. And that's probably why it was illegal. You don't want a bunch of people walking around starting to realize the reality isn't the way we've been told. Because what happens to our capitalist structure? Like if everyone starts realizing I don't need to buy things to fulfill myself because I already am whole, or whatever the case may be. So to me, the psychedelics, plant medicines, these types of altered state experiences are like a doorway to opening up to what things like the tree of life, these more spiritual practices that don't require an external element like a plant or a drug can bring. And yet I've seen people, get off antidepressants, like heal like major anxiety, trauma, and be able to like release emotion that had been held inside for like 10 plus years, just in like a simple, quote unquote, simple journey. So there's something to it.
Why is simple in quotes?
Do you feel like
it seems like it's not a simple journey?
Yeah.
Oh, why is simple in quotes?
Yeah. Well, just because I think, it's like, oh, it's one day and everything's great, but it's not that simple. I tell people, as soon as someone is showing interest in plant medicine work and they make like a phone call or go into a first session of preparing for a journey, like they're already having the ball in motion of like the universe showing them what wants to be seen, maybe what wants to be healed. And after the journey is complete, like just because you're out of that plant space doesn't mean that like everything's going to be all great and you got the answers you need. It's like now the real work begins, that integration part, the embodiment of the learnings. And that can be months or years that it takes for us to really hone in on that.
I appreciate that you're saying that. I've had a lot of people ask me both for my personal recommendation, which I have no experience whatsoever with it, and then both Lexi and I have been invited to participate in a couple of ceremonies, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I feel like, I think when people are especially asking me about it, it's sort of like it's a fix it, right? Am I going to be alleviated of my depression? Am I going to be, will my anxiety disappear? But the truth is, it's, as you suggested, it's just a gateway. It's just that let's open the door to what's really going on.
Yeah. And like when I see my life where I was, like I was married, working, living very much not my own life. And psychedelics, spirituality, all this like self-learning stuff came in. And my life now compared to those, whatever, 10 years, I would say now, 9, 10 years, completely different. And most people, I think, it's easy for us to we've been told by like science and the healthcare system, doctors, take this and you'll feel better. Everything will be better. But it's like, it's not even that, because like my whole life was engulfed in things that were not making me happy. So even if I took psychedelics then and just stayed in the same marriage, the same life that I was in, like I would still be the same person. So that I think is the hard part, like to be willing to create the changes. And all I can say is it's worth it. I think so, at least at this point, it seems worth it. Yeah.
That's cool. I appreciate that you're saying it's not snap, I feel healthy and well tomorrow, or I feel like, oh, I'm going to move to New York and, live that life. Or I'm going to be a homesteader now because I had this experience. So it's real healing, true healing, perhaps, and you tell me if this is the correct interpretation, but true healing takes a lot of strength and some structure and some willingness to really continue the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like how you said that. And it is really, truly like a lifelong process. I don't think as much as we have done the work, explored the inner realms in whatever way, I've gone to therapy for years, whatever. I think everyone has we're evolving as a humanity. So it's going to be never ending.
That's cool though. It's a beautiful process at the same time, not to scare everybody away from it. So,
Yeah.
But it is, it's a beautiful process, and you're going to experience ups and downs anyway, no matter what path you take. So it's sort of perhaps how it unfolds for you. How beautiful can it unfold for you?
Yeah.
We'd love to know more about your services. I just wanted to talk about, before we run out of time, which it just always happens so fast. What are some of the services that you're offering your clients right now? If people are interested in getting in touch, do you offer services only in person in Canada, or do you ever work with people via Zoom, or how does that work?
I do a mix of both in person and online, just so that it opens the doors to international or national folks. A lot of my time is spent just holding space and tapping in like intuitively to maybe what's showing up for someone on their healing journey. My hope is really to empower people to listen and learn like what is their personal truth. Whatever that might look like. And I bring in the things I've known as from being a nurse. So a bit of that lens and the spiritual practices of the shamanism, the Reiki, like energy healing and sound healing in session. So a session can be very like unique. I call it kind of like empowerment coaching or high frequency healing sessions where, we just move energy. And, I wanted to say it can be very healing and supportive for people as again, like this next door, until what are the next doors going to open and what are the next? This isn't like a one time, like everything is fixed in one moment. And then for some folks, they're interested in the plant medicine work. So that's through the lens of like integration. Maybe someone has gone through a journey, and they want to talk about what happened, or they're preparing for a journey, or they want support in like having someone be with them during that experience, whether it's like a large dose journey or microdosing. So it seems like a lot, especially women, are more interested in the microdosing. They're kind of like, I want to just go gentle. And so I offer like a 3-month program where we can explore that with regular like interactions meeting and some other learnings that go along the way. And then I'm teaching more about magic and things like that. That's where I'm stepping more into, because it feels so, I really like what Israel Regardie says, just how I feel there's a need for both magic and the psychology aspects, like of the mind, to promote deep healing. and balance in people's lives. So I'm seeing how everything I've learned and everything that's coming into the forefront now has been like a part of that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just going to say, Israel Regardie, he's amazing. He's an amazing guy. Not only this famed magician and prolific writer, but didn't he, if I'm not mistaken, he was the private secretary of Aleister Crowley at one point, maybe, who's sort of a polarizing figure in the magic space, but Israel Regardie is not that vibe at all. And that is not to knock out Crowley's, contributions or to, weigh in with judgment on whatever it is that he, his modalities. He really contributed a lot. But Israel Regardie, he is an amazing author to read. I think did he write the 1-year manual? I think he did. There are monthly meditations that you're supposed to do. And the way he's writing it, he knows it's hard, but he's telling you that it's good for you. You're going to start small. I know it's hard, but health wise, here's why it's important. Spiritually, here's why it's important. And I think he also had a healthcare background. Maybe he was like a chiropractor or something.
Yeah, I think he went on later to become a chiropractic doctor. Mm-hmm.
So you guys are similar in that sense. You've got the healthcare background and the magical practice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool. I definitely feel there's something there. And it's interesting, his whole role, and this is something I've been sitting with personally, and we could even tie it to the psychedelic lens of, a lot of these practices were very much, they're mystery, they're hidden. And Israel Regardie was the one who, you're right, he basically was asking Crowley, hey, take me under your wing. And he became his secretary in the hopes that he could learn like the mysteries, learn about, the Order of the Golden Dawn, these different practices. And then Israel Regardie, though, felt this need to like disperse and share publicly all these very secret teachings and rituals. And I feel like it was at that turn of like, in these 1900s, mid 1900s, there was this like transition, and if we could even tie it to technology coming out, now we all have access to the internet, access to infinite possibilities of information, that like maybe these mysteries or secrets are no longer meant to be secret. That's kind of where I'm at now, is like, maybe that's why psychedelics and plants are becoming more known, because we all have the ability now to access something beyond ourselves, even though it's in ourselves. But we've like created this, it's almost like spirit made this separation so that we could then come into learning more. And I really respect that willingness to go against the grain of what society says is appropriate or what you should do. And, share through teaching, through experience, so that others can also receive that. Though I always wonder what maybe, I think he like died quite a mysterious sort of bizarre death. Like, is that because he shared all the things he shared? Who knows?
There's been so many.
What do you mean?
Didn't he like, he started getting into alchemy. And alchemy, it's like the idea that we transmute into the philosopher's stone, or into like this alchemical gold. And back in like the Renaissance, medieval times, people were literally doing experiments. And he initially thought, because I think he wrote about this in some of his books, that first he was like, well, it's not really a chemical process. It's more an internal process. But then he started, after he met a chemist, he started realizing, oh no, like it's actually a physical process. You can do this work. And I think he ended up blowing up in the lab doing some type of experiment. So kind of bizarre.
Ooh. Sounds like a great movie. That's super interesting. And that's curiously speaking to alchemy and a little bit about plant medicine, understanding that our chemistry starts changing. And perhaps I'm not right about this. I don't know. But I feel like when we start using the plant medicine, it's possible that our chemistry starts changing, or that obviously is part of the process, at least for a brief time. Is that right?
Yeah, like the main thing I tell folks is like your neurochemistry, like the neural pathways in your brain start to change. And that's where people wake up, so to speak, if we want to use that kind of more new age term, that you no longer are seeing through the same nerves in a
Right.
way, or sensing through the same nerves. We're able to it creates new paths. And I think that's where the intention is important, because it's like, where our intention is, like the energy follows that, right? And so
Right.
like in a way too, the energy and the nerves or the pathways of the brain, it's going to follow where it is that we wish to go. And it's a matter then of it building. And there's different methods with like microdosing, using certain mushrooms like lion's mane and some of the other sort of blends that they can do that can help kind of really support building those new pathways. So that's how I interpret that.
So when we're building those new pathways, and this sounds simple, I'll just jump on this highway, but is that potentially a bit of a painful or surprising process? Because we sort of are our neural pathways in a lot of ways. I mean, that's the signal we're giving to the universe. That's sort of the signal we're giving to our reality. Can that be a bit of a difficult process, changing lanes?
Yeah, I think that's where, a lot of the best preparation work for any journey, I believe, is going into the shadow work. Because to me, the way I perceive it is, there's like that path, and there's almost like a light side and a dark side. And oftentimes what's happening is we've been so much attributing it to one side. And we don't really want to look at that like darker, shadowy aspect that oftentimes is what wants to be kind of brought up in a journey. And so by being willing and, the more open someone is and maybe prepared to explore those kind of shadow aspects, the more likely it is that the paths are going to be like more around the intention, more supportive in the journey itself. The person is better able to navigate when those shadow parts show up to be seen, because it's like the flip side of a coin. It's like, well, even if it's a shadow, on the other side, there's going to be something light, something that's going to add value to our life. That's going to be a strength or a superpower.
Yeah, because I can imagine some of my neural pathways being pretty darn stubborn. Like, we really like this highway. I don't want to get off this path. So we've been doing this a long time, and it's going to be hard to make a lane change or get off this off ramp.
Well, and I think that's where the different medicines, I'm not at all versed in every medicine. I haven't tried every medicine. I think that's where some people feel more pulled to particular ones, because it's just like your chemistry and that plant medicine just really like interweave together so beautifully that it can be the most supportive with that. Whereas there's some, I think of like acid. I feel like I talked about this maybe last time, but like LSD for me in the brain, like it literally feels like something's like, it's so like cerebral and like technology like it's a very different experience, and so for some people that might not be at all what they want, even from a sensations perspective, but like that's how that medicine works for me. So what it might look like for each person, I think that's where you feel called, where you're feeling the pull, is a great first step to ask yourself, okay, what is it? Because those plants, those medicines start to communicate or make themselves known. And then from there, like through kind of the explorative or experimentation of it in a way that's safe and appropriate for the individual. Yeah.
Right. So how do you make that call? I know when Lexi and I have been approached to do some rituals or ceremonies, the person who's facilitating the ceremony has suggested maybe we'll start with a little lesser product or a little lesser, a flower plant medicine for you rather than something super intense like DMT.
No, for sure.
I don't know.
Well, I'm sober. So, I mean,
does that make sense?
I don't drink. So I'm like, I can have Blue Lotus. I know that. And yerba mate. Blue Lotus and yerba mate. I think a lot can be done with those. But yeah, how do you sort of figure it out?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's on you, Fola.
Yeah. Yeah. The main thing that we tell people is like, listen to your body. Listen, what is it feeling? And where are those edges of its fear? Because I can tell you, doing many journeys, you still coming up to fear. And the main two ones, at least in my experience and what I witnessed, is the fear of insanity and the fear of death. Like, and it's really, those both boil down to the fear of the unknown. And so the internal check-in with the body, like, what is really here for me? And I think it's beautiful that you're even having the conversations with whoever these people or facilitators are, that they're willing to adjust and work with what you need and want, because that's, to me, a huge red flag is if someone says, no, you have to do like a 5-gram dose for your first trip. Like, usually I'd say when people are wanting to do the larger dose journeys, it's best if the client or the individual wants that, has the proper supports in place, has done the preparation work, and is aware of like both that light and shadow that could show up. We don't ever really call any experience a bad experience. It just might be more difficult. And so you're going to get what you get out of it. But I think there's nothing wrong. What I've learned is like the society we live in that says bigger is better is such a toxic perspective that I don't think we need that. Most people that I've talked with, other facilitators, that they're like, no, like we don't need to do that. Like what feels like maybe we could bring the more gentleness in. And then maybe in like a year or something later, you go back and you decide, I'm going to like go really big this time because that's what I feel like I need to do. Like, then it's all okay. That's just my view. I know some people would disagree and they believe it needs to go big, go home, or whatever that saying is.
I might go home. Yeah, I think it might be too. I mean, I have a few friends that have like, yeah, I've spent about, a good portion of the time throwing up in a bucket. Not sure I feel like doing that.
I could throw up in a bucket.
And I don't know if that's effective.
Yeah. Is that effective?
What?
See, that to me, that's like, yeah, that feels really cathartic. I would throw up in a bucket. But I definitely would need somebody holding my hand, and I'm a huge baby, and it would need to be the tiniest little thing, tiniest, ever.
Yeah, ayahuasca is a pretty intense and like I haven't done an ayahuasca journey, though it's been calling me for quite some time. Every time I've attempted to access it here, it hasn't worked. So I'm like, okay, well, I know when it's time, even though I do not want to do it at all. Like, I do not want to do it for a variety of reasons. But like a lot of that physicality, it's like, that doesn't appeal to me. And yet I also see the healing of purging of, and that I think in itself is even something really beneficial. The prep of, only eating and having that like diet that's going to support entering to the space, and then purging the things physically and energetically that the medicine does purge. And then whatever the benefits of the journey, like visually or just cerebrally, kind of bring about, I think there is power. But yeah, that's not one that like calls to me a whole lot. Like I'm a very, tree of life. Like I like that. Maybe I'm too controlling still. I admit that.
Yeah, us too. Yeah.
Yeah. I need some hair bands for that. Just not sure I'm ready to go there. But, for those that it's worked for, I don't mean to poo-poo it because it has done some miraculous things for some people. But I think it's a little bit like what Lexi and I were saying, our own challenges, it depends on where your body's at too, like where my diet is and I don't drink either for the most part. So, that might all be too much all at once. Body's just not used to.
Yeah, I would say, as I tell folks, and I've seen this before where people are like, I want to do this work. I really feel like I need to. And we just do a journey asking the plant, like, okay, what do you have for me? And I've had it where people are like, the plant told them, no, it's not time. And then they realize like, oh, I was just feeling the pressure to do this because of society, because of my friends, because of so-and-so, whoever, whatever, some thought that it needed to happen. And so that personal relationship, yeah, just inviting everyone, like, ask, is this for me? What do you have for me? And show me when the time is to do it. And your intuition will guide you with that. And yeah, it's powerful.
That's super helpful too, Fola, really. It is. That's very, very helpful.
So if someone were interested, they're like, oh, I might want to go on a journey and ask one of these plants if it might be right for me, but I'm not sure. And I wonder if Fola, if I could get in touch with her and maybe ask her about this. How should people get in touch with you, or how can they find you if they're curious about exploring, because the way you offer it seems so just gentle and reasonable and enjoyable and humane and kind. How can people get in touch with you if they're curious about one of these journeys or they're interested in?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I hope I'm compassionate and humane. Try to be. I think the best way is probably going to my website, deepmindsquared.com. I'm also on Instagram I think it's at deep_mind_squared. On my website, they can like schedule just a chat and we can meet and kind of have a conversation of what their needs are, what they see for themselves, and how, if at all, I can support them. That would be the best ways to connect with me directly. And then, maybe heading over to the YouTube channel, Deep Mind Squared. People can watch and tune in there as they wish.
Perfect. Any upcoming things you want to share? Upcoming offerings, upcoming plans, and it's okay if you're not ready to share those things, but anything that you want to.
Yeah, I do actually have. Oh, sorry. Yeah, for sure, Lexi. I have a pathworking course that's like pre-recorded sessions because we just finished like a whole term of diving into the tree of life through the 10 spheres specifically. So that's on my website as well. If people are interested in checking that out, learning more about the tree, having some support as they go through like that kind of climbing up the tree from Malkut at the bottom to the top of Keter. And coming up soon, too, I'm going to be releasing a magical course. I'm calling it The Way of Magic, I believe. And it's going to be just like providing people with a bit of a foundation of different ways to protect and balance energy, about kind of the different models or systems in which the universe has kind of been looked at across time in magical circles. And ways in which we can really support our personal healing with kind of embodying or integrating shadow pieces that we oftentimes want to suppress or repress. And also how to really start boosting, the dream time and tapping into, like we talked at the beginning, what are some of those ways in which the universe communicates, those synchronicities, the signs, like those types of magical practices and ways the universe talks to us. So that's going to be coming out in like summertime, most likely. So if people are interested, they can reach out to me and I'll add them to the mailing list. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm still working away at it. So
that sounds amazing.
Cool. These sounds like great opportunities to sort of be introduced to these different modalities and, get your feet a little wet without sinking completely in. So I like that. That sounds fun, actually.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah.
Well, let's see. So we're at 10:59. I will stop recording unless we have anything, but wanted to thank you so much, Fola, for coming back and for this amazing chat. And you look incredible. So lovely to see you.
Yes, and you too. Thank you both. This is always lovely. Keep doing what you're doing, please, because just seeing all the content that's coming out and the different conversations, like, I really do believe this is like a huge time. It's really important. People are looking for it. So thank you for the opportunity to share. Yeah.
No, thank you. And thank you for sharing. Seriously, I think it's going to help a lot of people. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Soul Fam podcast. Be sure to tune in to every episode where we dive into a different rabbit hole of the known and unknown to empower you in conscious living and exploration of the greater universe. We hope you leave each episode with a little stardust in your hair and inspiration in your heart. With love from your Soul Fam. Word for our sponsors, Oweli Supplements and CBD Pure, both whom have generously offered to give you 15% off using the SoulFam podcast coupon code SoulFam, SOULFAM, and free shipping. And trust me, when you're ordering stuff like this, it actually really adds up. You can save quite a bit of money, several dollars for every order. Both Lexi and I have worked with these products and their companies, and we have firsthand experience, and we really like these companies, sincerely. Oweli, OWELI.com, is a supplement company that uses natural ingredients based on ancient knowledge coupled with modern science, which sounds a lot like the Soul Fam podcast. I am a huge supplement person. I take multiple supplements each day. The quality of Oweli supplements is high and effective, in my opinion. I take Move for joint health because I work out almost every day. I do yoga, I walk, I hike, I ride horses. And secondly, I mix collagen, peptides, hydrolyzed protein for a protein shake every day so I can be sure to get the right amount of protein in my body every day. And for women, I personally feel that's super important. CBD Pure, www.cbdpure.com, is made with non-GMO hemp grown without herbicides, pesticides, and other dangerous chemicals. Both Lexi and I feel like this is a stellar product. I use the CBD Pure 500 cream for pain in my neck from texting and working at a computer and a car accident I was in. Lexi uses CBD Pure Pet Health to help some of her posse of rescued cats who show up at her doorstep. They often have joint issues and other movement issues, and this product really seems to help Lexi's cats. Both products work superbly. No harmful side effects, at least from our experience. So once again, we thank our sponsors, CBD Pure and Oweli Supplements. We'll post links to both product lines on our Instagrams on my link tree and on YouTube and on our upcoming website, Patreon. Just remember the code for 15% off with free shipping, which once again adds up to a lot, is SoulFam, SOULFAM. That's SoulFam for our SoulFam.